Welcome to the channel. For anybody new, I am Matt Luna, and we're going to be making a jerkbait. We're going to be airbrushing a jerkbait in today's video using the Dual Mold Bait Blast products. If you want to check any of these products out after watching the video, make sure to use my affiliate link that's down in the description. I also got a product list down there for you guys as well. Making a pro blue color on the jerkbait, tore all the paint off of it, starting from scratch. Let's get into it. Let's make this jerkbait. So what I did to start is I went with the Bait Blast primary white color. That's going to allow me to put a white base coat right over the top of the jerkbait. So for the actual top color that we're going for on this jerkbait, we're going to be using a mixture of 3 different colors. The first one is Blueback Herring. It's a nice blue color. Pro Blue, and then a Go-To Pearl. We're going to mix all those together to come up with the actual top color that we'll be using on the jerkbait. And as you can see here, I did add some more tape onto that jerkbait. I put it about halfway down, so that way I made sure that my blue doesn't go too far down the jerkbait, because like I said, I want it to be clear. I don't have a specific formula that I'm going for this top color. That's one thing that if you hit a color just right, it's nice to pay attention to how much of each color you're mixing together, so that way you can replicate that color in the future. In this case, I'm just kind of going for it. I'm just mixing things together to try to get it a decent color inside of that cup in order to come up with something that I'm going for, and then I'm just gonna spray it out in the gun. But if you're trying to replicate colors, you definitely wanna get an idea of how to recreate that color, counting drops, whatever you need to do. I'm trying to just go nice and smooth over the top of the bait, so that way I don't have too much paint in one particular area of the jerkbait, so I'm trying to go evenly over the top. You don't wanna go too much at one time, because you'll end up having this paint run on you, so you gotta be careful not to put too much paint at one time. Sometimes you'll have to pause and kind of let everything dry and then add some more paint to it. In this case, I needed to add more blue, so I had to do a couple different coats of it. So I had to let everything dry, come back, add some more blue. I was having a problem. I had too much white over the top of this bait. I should have used a little bit less of that primary white, because it made it difficult for me to cover over that white and have it have a natural look to it. So once I had a nice blue color over the top of my bait, I took that tape off, and as you're gonna see, once I take this tape off, you're gonna be able to see a distinct line down the side of the bait, which when you're better at airbrushing, you're not gonna wanna have those distinct lines. You want things to look a little bit more natural, but like I said in the beginning, as you're starting off with your airbrushing, using the tape is gonna help you to create more fishable looking baits. Maybe it won't look quite as natural as what you can make without having the tape on there, but it's going to save you from having too much paint over the top of your baits. The next color we're going to be using is Shad Back Black. This is going to go around the eyes of the bait. So again, with all these airbrush colors, you're going to have to feel out the consistency they come out of the actual bottle with. You might have to add some reducer, add some different colors, but in the end, you're going to need to mix everything up to get it to the right consistency to come out of your gun. I recommend positioning your jerkbait into a particular position, because it's going to help you spray the bait. And if you don't want too much of that black going towards the body of the bait, spray it away from you, so that way any of the extra spray is going to go off the front of that jerkbait rather than down the side. So as you can see, I have it positioned away from me to be able to get that black on there without putting any black down the sides of that bait. The next color we're going to be using is the Shad Flash color. This is going to go towards the body and the bottom of the bait. Unfortunately, my camera angle is not very good right here, but as you can see, I'm kind of going up and down the bait. Once again, you do not want to put too much of this color on at one time, because it will start to run down your bait, and then it's just going to kind of clump up in certain areas, and it's going to give you that unnatural look. I like to have the thinnest amount of paint possible while also giving me the color that I'm looking for. So far, we're doing pretty good. I like the blue on top. I like how that black went into the eyes, and then that bottom is also looking really good. Not as transparent as I was hoping for at this point. I overdid it when I painted the sides with that Shad Flash, like I was explaining to you guys a minute ago. So I'm gonna try to go about doing something a little bit different to fix that. I decided to add some of that Pro Blue color to the top to try to darken up the top of the bait and give it just a little bit of a pearlized blue kind of a look. So I added that Pro Blue over the top, and this is where I ended up adding more blue and color to the sides of the bait than I really wanted. So in a second, we're gonna end up kind of doing some stuff to the sides of the bait to kind of clear things up a little bit. I do not recommend this process. You really want to be careful in the beginning of the airbrushing process to not overspray when you're trying to go for clear baits, but sometimes we screw up and we just kind of have to go with it and do the best we can if we don't want to just strip all the paint back off. So we're going to check in on the bait, It's a pretty good color overall. It's a little bit frosty on the sides. I want it to be a little bit clearer. I think the blue's okay on the top. I would prefer it to be a little bit darker, but overall I'm satisfied. I do like the dark color on the head, but I would like that sides to be a little bit clearer. I do not recommend this process, guys, but what I was doing here is I was taking 320 grit sandpaper and trying to blend out that distinct line that the tape created with that blue. Like I said in the beginning, the tape is not the best way to go, but it will prevent you from adding unwanted paint to different areas of your bait. I was using this sandpaper to blend everything through. It was successful, but what you end up doing with the sandpaper is you're also taking off some of the definition, some of the scales that are built into the plastic of the jerkbait. This was wet sandpaper, so I minimized as much as I could, but it will start to take away some of that definition of your plastic that's built into the crankbait if you do use the sandpaper. So the sandpaper deal did not work exactly how I wanted it to, so I had to take some cotton balls with some acetone in order to get some of the paint off of that bait in order for me to end up with those clear sides. If you use acetone, it will cloud up the sides of the bait, but once you use the clear coat, it will bring out that clarity again. You need to be careful when you're using acetone, because if you use too much or you set the bait in the acetone, it will distort your bait. It can bend it, it can ruin the plastic, it can tremendously ruin your bait, so you have to be very careful with the amount that you use. A little bit won't hurt the bait and it will remove the paint, but just don't use too much and don't set your bait inside the acetone or it's going to ruin it. I just kept rubbing the bait until I got the consistency and the clarity that I was going for. While you're rubbing it with the acetone, it will clear up, so it's going to give you an idea of what that bait will look like once you get the clear coat on there. But once that acetone does dry, it will have a cloudy finish to it. Checking on the bait, we did get some more clarity out of that. You're seeing some cloudiness to it because of the acetone drying on the bait, but overall you can see those chambers a little bit better inside of our jerkbait. So once we get that clear coat on there, it'll come through very well. So at this point, I decided to go back and add some paint to it, even though I just removed some. I wanted that belly to have a little bit more silver to it, and I did have some paint issues because of the acetone. The acetone doesn't remove everything perfectly like you would want it to, so there was some imperfections to everything when I was taking that paint off. So I was trying to kind of clean everything up using a little bit more paint, adding some paint to the bait. But overall, I got to a good consistency, a good clarity to the bait after I added everything on, and I felt like I got a pretty decent bait overall, all said and done. So generally speaking, if you're taking the paint off of your old baits and then repainting them like I am in this video, you're gonna wanna prep them by adding tape to wherever you're trying to not have paint go on those baits. In this case, I did that to the bill of this bait, so I'm removing the tape from the bill before I go to clear coat, because when you add the clear coat, you definitely want that clear coat to go over the bill of your baits, because it will bring out the clarity in that bill once that clear coat sets up on the bait. So these are not the eyes that I would normally pick for this jerkbait, but in the size that I needed, this was the only option I had. So these are 3D lure eyes, HD lure eyes, and I'm just adding them to the bait prior to clear coating, because you want that clear coat to go over the eye of the bait, because it's gonna help keep it in place, and you're gonna lose less eyes over time by having them on prior to your clear coat. I like to use a pair of tweezers to put them on. I feel like it makes things a little bit easier to put them on. You can kind of position everything a little bit easier. It helps you take them off the little paper that they come on, and it just helps you maneuver everything with those small pliers rather than trying to use your fingers. So for these jerkbaits, we're gonna be using KBS Diamond Finish Clear Coat in the aerosol can. I like using the aerosol can just because it's simple and easy to use. My process for the clear coat's pretty simple. I just take a piece of wire, slide it through the eye of the bait, and then hang it on a tree that I have in my front yard. I spray the bait, trying to get coverage all over the bait, trying to make sure that it's even, and I don't overdo it with the clear coat, because if you do, it will pull up in certain areas, and then it will start to drip down your bait, and you don't want to have a big glob of clear coat on your bait on the side. So you got to be careful to evenly spread out your clear coat and not to overdo it in any in particular spot. So once you've sprayed all that clear coat on there, I just like to let it dry outside for a couple minutes, and then I'll bring it into the garage to try to make sure that there's no dust or debris that gets blown around from being outside and sticks onto the side of my bait. And I just let it hang dry. Usually overnight is good. I wouldn't fish with it for at least 24 hours, probably longer. Here's a final shot, all said and done with the clear coat nice and dry out in the sun. Nice clarity to it. I think this bait turned out pretty good.